wins.
Good evening, folks. Freddie Vasquez, Basic Politics Unfiltered. Freddie Vasquez, happy Sunday. Today I want to discuss the race for Westchester County District Attorney. Good evening, folks. Good evening. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday, folks. Freddie Vasquez here, Basement Politics. I wanted to discuss today the race for Westchester County DA, which has been heating up. It's a lot of action going on there. So let's discuss that. You know, I have my concerns with the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. Not so sure that they are all on the up and up there. You know, I have my beef with them for taking on the case against me, which I think is a total waste of time and taxpayer money, and it's all politically motivated. It's really an attempt to silence me. I mean, they couldn't get me with a lawsuit. Let's see if we can get this guy through the legal system. And I pride myself on not having any legal issues, right? And not having been arrested, being a criminal. But the criminals are in charge of politics and our legal system in Westchester County and in Yonkers at the very least, in my opinion, right? But let's talk about this race. It's a three-way race between only Democrats. Is there not a Republican candidate out there? No Republican wanted to enter the race for Westchester County DA. So it's a three-way race between Susan Cacace, who's probably the most popular name on this ballot, a newcomer, a guy I have not heard of before, William Wagstaff, and another guy I haven't heard of before, Adeel Mirza. Adeel Mirza actually did not even seek any nomination or the party nomination. He's going solo. But there was a primary held for between Susan Cacace and William Wagstaff. And actually, William Wagstaff, for being someone that's not politically known, did pretty good against Susan Cacace. But Susan Cacace did eventually, she would win the primary and the endorsement from the Democratic Party in Westchester, which should be investigated, in my opinion. She won with 59% of the weighted vote in the primary, so she secured the endorsement. I have here my notes by the corrupt Democratic Party of Westchester. It's definitely corrupt in Yonkers. That's one thing that's for sure, in my opinion. I believe it's for sure. There's some shady individuals involved with the party there and the way they have things set up. I mean, it could only lead one to believe, one who's honest and truthful and uses common sense, that party is crooked. It's not on the up and up. But Susan Cacace, the name Cacace is very well known in the city of Yonkers. She's, again, being endorsed by the party, and she's also being supported by the Spanos, or the Spano administration. So they got her back. Spanos got her back. And usually that means that you're going to win, right? So, I mean, that doesn't say anything right there. Her campaign manager is, and again, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, but maybe you can reach out to me, Jen, and give me the proper pronunciation of your last name. Jen Olkers is Susan Cacace's campaign manager, and I'll get into Jen a little bit here, more about her. And then there's William Wagstaff, who, again, I didn't do too bad in the primary. He received 40% of the votes, and I hear that he gave a great speech. He got a standing ovation. And I think people want change. I think Susan Cacace got 59% of the vote because the party is corrupt and because she is being supported by the Spanos, who have a tight grip on Yonkers and Westchester politics. Former Senator Nick Spano is very influential, very powerful, even to this day. And his power extends from Yonkers all the way up to Albany. And he has very close ties with the governor, Kathy Hochul, who, if you didn't see, I put a video out in regards to her relationships to slumlords. She comes from a developer background. Her husband is a developer. And so she fits right in with these folks here in Yonkers, which is why she's been in Yonkers quite often. In fact, she was even at Nick Spano's home and at his ice house. His ice house. That's right. Nick Spano lives over in the Colonial Heights section of Yonkers. He purchased the home next to his home and turned that into a pool house, and it's called the Ice House. And he invited Kathy Hochul there, and that's where they hung out. Well, William Wagstaff, going back to him, again, doing pretty well in the Democratic primary, is a civil rights attorney. And he's getting a lot of support from the mayor of Mount Vernon, Mayor Shawn Howard, who knows my wife, or knew my wife very well. She knew of me. She knew me. And she, I mentioned this before. She was in the conversation when Lakeisha Collins Bellamy's chief of staff, Maria George, was accusing me or insinuating that I was somehow into child porn. And I took offense to that, Maria, right? But I was more offended by the fact that Shawn Howard has not said anything about that, or didn't say, no, you're wrong. I know those, know them, very well. So, but that's how it is in Yonkers. They defame your name. But again, he's a civil rights attorney. And very recently, and I want to show this, he held a rally in White Plains in regards to voter intimidation. And this is not unusual in the city of Yonkers and in Westchester, voter intimidation. I've spoke about this, voter intimidation, voter fraud, the Westchester County Board of Election being corrupt, in my opinion. There are many individuals, not all, I don't want to generalize, but there are certain individuals that work in the Westchester County Board of Elections that are there simply to help certain individuals assure the win, right? In fact, the head of the Yonkers Democratic Party, Tom Meyer, his son, Tom Meyer Jr., works at the Board of Elections, which I think that's a conflict of interest. I hear also David Tubiolo, county legislator, Westchester County legislator's mom, also works at the Board of Elections. And I think those are conflicts of interest, but what do I know? Well, anyway, there was a rally held on April 14th, or press conference, in regards to voter intimidation. During the routine and legitimate petition review process, the Wagstaff campaign was notified by multiple voters of threats received by an investigator, including 3 Black women who spoke at the press conference, who signed petitions in support of the Democratic candidate William Wagstaff. These voters told their stories of being menaced, intimidated, and threatened by investigators hired by the Cacace team to question the validity of the petitions they signed. And so they basically were looking to try to get him thrown off the ballot. And so they hired an investigator, according to these individuals, who then went and started to call the people who had signed his petition, William Wagstaff's petition, and began to make threats, menaced and intimidated them. And that's, again, I've heard this before. This is not an unusual accusation or allegation. And that's just part of what they do, right? So it's difficult for just anyone to become a candidate, a legitimate candidate, and get on the ballot unless you are prepared to hire an attorney and defend your petitions, if you can get all the signatures required in the first place, which is another difficult task, right? So because of that, it limits the pool of individuals who are able to get on ballots and limits the individuals that voters are able to choose from, right? And so that's why you have the same group of individuals constantly running for office, or whether it be judge, whether it be a council member, right? It's the same individuals, right? And it's the same campaign managers. And so Susan Cacace's campaign manager is Jen Oakers. Now, Jen Oakers, I've been hearing very recently, was involved in some voter or petition fraud, and that resulted in a complaint being filed against Judge Verishako. Jen Oakers was Vereshchako's campaign manager back in 2021. And according to this source, who I know, it's not an anonymous source, this individual would know this, Jen Oakers turned in petitions that had fraudulent signatures, and she knowingly did this. Now, again, Jen, I hear you're a nice person. I hear you're a nice woman. This is what I've been told by other people. I don't know you. I don't have a personal vendetta against you, but I'm being told this information, right? And I'm being told that you knowingly, and I say this because I know she watches, or at least she watched last week, and you knowingly submitted these petitions with fraudulent signatures. Basically, the same person signed all the names on them. And so very recently, as a result, there was a complaint filed against Vereshchako because ultimately she is responsible for those petitions. And so she's going to have to appear before the Judicial Commission in regards to this and defend herself. And this could result in her being, taken off the bench. Will it happen? I'm not sure. I'm also being told that this was done and filed by Zahi Jeris, who I'll get into a minute because he's also involved in this race for Westchester County DA. But yeah, voter intimidation, voter fraud, it's nothing new. It's something that happens quite often. And I just want to make people aware of this. This is why I do basement politics. This is why they hate me so much. This is why they attack my family. I mean, because there's truth to what I'm saying, right? If I was some crazy guy that didn't know what he was talking about, they wouldn't care. They would leave me alone. But there's truth to what I'm saying. And they want to stop me from speaking that truth. This is Jen Oakers here, who, family is really entrenched in the city of Yonkers and in Westchester County. Her father, and I'll get into that also, is J. Emmett Murphy, a retired judge. There goes William Wagstaff, if you don't know what he looks like, civil rights attorney. And very recently, Wagstaff submitted a voter affidavits to refute fraud allegations because he's also being accused of fraudulent petitions. Isn't that funny? He's being accused of fraudulent petitions by the Cacace team, whose campaign manager has been accused of fraudulent petition in another race, and that was the judge's race with Vereshchako, which in fact they turned out to be no good. The petitions that were filed that were fraudulent were for Vereshchako to be on the Independence Party. And they were reviewed by the Westchester Board of Elections, and they determined that the signatures were no good. And so she didn't get the Independence Party endorsement. So there may be some truth to that. And I hear that Jen is pretty upset and does not want people really knowing about this, but we have to know. We must talk about this, right? William Wagstaff's campaign has denied allegations of fraud intended to keep him off the ballot in the race for Westchester District Attorney, providing affidavits from 4 voters that their signatures on a nominating petitions were valid and that Wagstaff himself witnessed them. The affidavits detail what the voters suggested was intimidating behavior by investigators for the campaign of Susan Cacace. Wagstaff contends that Cacace's campaign has engaged in bully politics and sought to disenfranchise Black voters. I believe that that's what's happening here. They keep Black voters misinformed by not informing them at all, or by using what I call sellout individuals who look like them, right? We have 4 women of color on the council, and they have been leading the Blacks astray in the city of Yonkers. They have been selling out the Black community. They almost sold the Neperhan Community Center off until the community responded. And under pressure, Mayor Mike Spano put out a press release the same day stating, no, we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to revamp it, and we're going to do this, that, and third, right? All of a sudden, we're finding out that Jim Bostic was mismanaging the money. Well, that's nothing new. Many people knew about this. It was written about before, but all of a sudden, now the mayor's speaking on it. I thought that was very interesting. Do we want a Democratic candidate for district attorney who feels empowered to act with impunity and harass citizens? He asked in a campaign release. Do we want someone running for district attorney who feels that they can manipulate the law to suit their own agenda? Both sides will be in court on Monday for a hearing on fraud allegations. And this is very interesting. Both sides will be in court Monday for a hearing on fraud allegations levied last week by retired state Supreme Court Justice J. Emmett Murphy on behalf of the Susan Cacace campaign. Well, how about that? His daughter is the campaign manager for Susan Cacace, and he's the one that levied these allegations. I find that very interesting. And this is why I don't have a lot of confidence these days in judges and law enforcement agencies and district attorneys. I've lost faith in them. Murphy also alleged that Wagstaff violated residency requirements by living at a home in Elmford rather than Mount Vernon apartment that he lists as his address on the nominating petitions. Well, Judge Murphy, your daughter is being accused of submitting fraudulent petitions herself. And in fact, the Westchester County District Attorney's Office very recently filed charges against an individual, and I should have brought that up, in regards to filing fraudulent petitions. But this is why I don't have faith in the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, because they are selective of who they bring charges up against. Why haven't they brought charges up against Jen Olkers? If they just do a little bit of investigation, they can see that there's a complaint against Vera Shackle for fraudulent petitions. Her campaign manager who submitted these petitions was Jen Olkers. So why aren't they investigating her as well? Right? So they're very selective on who they go after, or who they don't go after, I should say. So I thought that was very interesting. And so we'll have to see how that plays out. But if I have to choose one of the three, I would have to support William Wagstaff. And I know that people say, well, he had some criminal issues in the past, but people make mistakes, right? That's what they say about Zahid Jarris, who's currently heavily involved in Yonkers and Westchester County politics. Oh, he made a mistake. He's paid his debt to society. The same with former senator and felon Nick Spano. Oh, he paid his debt to society. He made a mistake. Well, why isn't the same being said of William Wagstaff? Is he currently committing crimes like some of these other individuals? Or did he make a mistake and he's paid his debt to society and now he wants to give back? So if I had to choose one of the three, just saying, the lesser of the three evils would be William Wagstaff. And then the third candidate, there's Adeel Mirza, a Democrat running for DA, allegedly sexually harassed subordinate. Now, I don't know much about Adeel Mirza other than what is on Google, what is on the internet here, these articles written in the Post and Low HUD. But he's a Democrat running for Westchester County District Attorney, and he was accused of sexually harassing a female subordinate in the prosecutor's office and questioning her race, allegedly telling her, I know you're not white. I don't understand what that means. Maybe he doesn't sexually harass white women, only women of color. I'm not sure. But Adeel Mirza, interesting guy. He was a former Westchester Assistant District Attorney who led the Greenberg Division. And again, he did not seek the Democratic primary party nomination, I should say. So he didn't enter the primary. It's probably because of his history, right? His current situation with this sexual harassment accusation. And he hired Zahid Jarris. So Zahid Jarris, the guy who was arrested, charged with, and convicted of political corruption, who spent 4 years in federal prison for it, who has been behind the campaigns of many individuals, including 3 or 4 of our city council members here in the city of Yonkers, is now involved with Adeel Mirza. According to sources, Adeel Mirza has also loaned his own campaign $750,000. Is that some form of payment to someone? Because I believe that these campaign fundraisers that they have, which they do throughout the year, whether they have an election coming up or not, is simply a way to launder money. That's just my belief. That's how they get payments to individuals who, or they receive, I should say, payments from certain individuals like developers and other people seeking favors, seeking jobs, right, with the city or with the county. Well, come to one of my campaign fundraisers. And if you write enough checks, you just might get that DPW job. And that's not something I'm making up. If you don't remember, a year or two ago, I posted an audio of a DPW worker by the name of Allah Neighbor, who's a Republican, I might ask, a Republican, a member of the Yonkers Republican Party, the sergeant of arms or at arms of the Yonkers Republican Party, but who also helps and supports Mayor Mike Spano, a Democrat. In fact, he does fundraisers for Mike Spano, a Democrat. Yet he is the Republican sergeant at arms. How does that work? Well, anyway, Mr. Allah Neighbor was caught on audio telling an individual who was seeking a job with DPW, who had applied to DPW, who has been waiting for this job, a Yonkers resident, a young guy who was looking for an opportunity, that if he came to Mayor Mike Spano's campaign and brought enough checks, that would give him the push, that would help him secure a job with DPW. This is what he's saying out of his own mouth. And I posted the audio. Yet there's no investigation into that by anyone. Yonkers Inspector General, who's very close with the Spanos. They go on vacation together. They go to casinos together. They have drinks and other things together. I've posted the picture of that. So how do you expect the Inspector General of the city of Yonkers to ever investigate any of the Spanos or anyone in office currently in Yonkers when he's really good friends with the Spano family? I mean, they literally go out to casinos and have drinks. Right? So, I mean, this is ridiculous what goes on here in the city of Yonkers. Well, anyway, again, he loaned his own campaign $750,000. He's being managed by Zahi Jeris, who has also managed the campaigns of the likes of Dan Romano, Judge Dan Romano. This is the guy that was sitting on my case the first time I went to court over that harassment charge that I received because of the individual that had been harassing my family for the past 3 years. And for whatever reason, whenever we went to the police or to the DA, they did nothing. But the minute this individual went to the police, they somehow charged me. They didn't notify me of the charge. They didn't arrest me. I was never fingerprinted. No picture was taken of me. Nothing. But I had this case now. And when I went to court, this is the guy that was there, Dan Romano, which he should have recused himself right away, seeing as he had close connections with Zahi Jeris, who's suing me currently for $1 million. And he also had a relationship with the plaintiff, the guy accusing me of harassment. So how do we trust our judges? How do we trust the district attorney's office? How do we have faith in these individuals when they are so caught up, entrenched, and tied with individuals who are criminals, who are corrupt, who are committing money laundering, extortion, blackmail? But that's also the campaign manager now of Adeel Mirza, the guy who has been accused of sexually harassing a subordinate. And again, I don't know Adeel Mirza. I don't have any issues with you. This is not personal. But I have to let the people know what's going on. We must be informed, properly, because who else is going to do it, right? So we have to. There he goes again. This is when he was going to court for bribing a city of Yonkers councilwoman, which he was found guilty of. So, this is stuff that we must, pay attention to. It's time that we expose this corruption. None of them are talking about their position on corruption. Yeah, well, listen, I believe that the fact that William Wagstaff's campaign is at least informing people of voter intimidation, right? I think that's a start. You're right, William, however. They're not, really discussing much of their stance on political corruption, which they should, because that is a huge problem in Westchester, in Yonkers, and in New York. New York is the #1 state for political corruption. It boggles my mind how the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, who's, by the way, worth $15 million, can go after Donald Trump and spend all that time, money, going after Donald Trump when we have corrupt officials right here in the state of New York. Why isn't she focused more locally? Which, by the way, Letitia, no one believes you. Everyone's voting for Trump now. Blacks love Trump now, right? Hispanics love Donald Trump. People are tired of the Democrats' corruption, has become very obvious. And isn't it interesting how all the rich folks are the politicians, the judges? They're the rich people, while everyone else in America is struggling to put food on their table. But they're becoming millionaires each day. How much is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez worth nowadays? Remember, she was the former bartender turned congresswoman. How'd that happen, right? Emmett Murphy is well liked. I'm sure he is. And I'm hoping that he doesn't affect my case. See, I'm very concerned with my court date that I have to go to in a couple months, because again, you can't trust these individuals. And I'm hoping that the judge that's sitting on my case now, that it's been moved to White Plains because I was never going to get a fair trial in Yonkers, is a fair individual, is an honest man with integrity and can see this for what it is. It's affecting my life. It really is. It's affecting my life in a negative way, and I just don't deserve that. So I'm hoping that, they don't reach out to this guy and say, hey, do us a favor and make sure you stick it to this guy because we don't like him, right? But that's only going to make me just, be more on you guys. And, listen, I have no problems calling the FBI, writing to the FBI, which I have. I've spoken with them on several occasions. They have reached out to me, and I'm willing to speak to them any day of the week. I don't care. It's time for justice. And I hope that you guys are doing the same. You, ladies and gentlemen, are doing the same. And I know that some of you have reached out to the FBI, have provided tips, and we need to continue doing this. Enough is enough. Unfortunately, he himself still serves as a fraudster for the city of Yonkers. He is a hearing officer who renders phony opinions at civil service law hearings to protect the city's legal interests. Yeah, and it's unfortunate that this is still going on, in the city of Yonkers. And until we actually do something, something is done, it's going to continue that way. And we're hoping that we see justice soon. We deserve it. The people of the city of Yonkers deserve it. Many people's lives have been destroyed. Anthony DiMaggio, former lieutenant, 15 years on the job, was railroaded because he spoke up. Now, I want to know, Anthony, and I'm not, don't have any issue with that police officer, the lieutenant who recently was involved in that drunk driving incident, but will he be fired? I mean, he's driving drunk. He crashes his car into a retaining wall. And he must have been going pretty fast. Did you see that retaining wall? He completely destroyed it. And he was arrested for it. And the only reason I believe he was arrested is because it happened in Bronxville. Had it happened in Yonkers, they would have swept that under the carpet and we would have heard nothing about it. But will he be fired? Will he be terminated? Will he lose his pension in the way that Anthony DiMaggio did for speaking the truth? Anthony wasn't driving drunk. He didn't commit a crime. He didn't sexually harass or assault anyone. He simply spoke the truth. He spoke up, and they took away his career the same way they did to my wife. After 15 years working for the New York City Board of Education, and then, unfortunately, working for the Yonkers School Board of Education, she was terminated over my podcast. They can say what they want about certifications, but that's all a bunch of BS. They just found a reason. But that was their second attempt. Their first attempt was through lies by the principal, Roosevelt, who completely told lies on a final evaluation and recommended that she be fired. But fortunately for her, he had wrote a great evaluation. And so the second evaluation, where he was recommended she be fired, was full of contradictions. And that's what saved her. I mean, that would have been a big lawsuit there, but they finally found a way to let her go. But it's okay. It's okay. We've bounced back, and God works in mysterious ways. And while we may have gone through all of that, it was to get to this point. And I can say that my wife truly is happy. She's even happier than when she was working, than when we had our daycare up and running. And the only thing that we miss and that we regret is, the disconnecting of our relationship with the children that were going to our daycare center. They meant a lot to us. So that's what we miss. But as far as everything else, we're fine with the way things turned out. We're happy. My children are happy. My daughter's going to be trying out for cheerleading squad next month, which I'm excited about. It's something that a lot of kids in the city of Yonkers don't have an opportunity to do because they don't have these programs. And with the $86 million budget deficit that they're facing going into next year's and all the layoffs that they're just talking about, our kids are really shortchanged. And it's sad and it's frustrating and it pisses me off that they can vote for raises for themselves while laying off teachers, while facing an $86 million school budget deficit. But they got their raises, right? And it's retroactive for the mayor, a multi-millionaire. That's unfortunate. Well, anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez. I just wanted to talk about that. Again, 3 candidates running for Westchester County DA. There's Susan Cacace, who's being supported by the Spanos. And it's almost like a guaranteed win if you're supported by the Spanos. The same was with Mimi Roca. She got the party endorsement. And she was supported by the Spanos, and she won. And there's, Susan Cacace. There's William Wagstaff, who, again, the lesser of the 3 evils. I would vote for William Wagstaff. I think that he's the guy. If there's no one else, there's no Republicans, there's nobody. He's the guy that deserves your vote. He's at least, speaking out about voter intimidation, voter fraud. I think he's the guy if we have to choose from the 3. And then you have Adeel Mirza, a guy whose campaign is being run by Zahi Jeris. Anything with Zahi Jeris is a no. It's a no, 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 no. He's the reason why Tasha Diaz is a city councilwoman. He is the reason why. She would have never gotten elected had it not been for Zahi Jeris. Never, never, never. All right, never. And I'm sure many of you are ashamed of being residents of the city of Yonkers, having watched her in the city council meetings going off. Embarrassment, a huge embarrassment. And it's, a shame. And it just doesn't say anything good about the city of Yonkers. So anything with Zahi Jeris, anyone being backed by Zahi Jeris is a no. It's a no, 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 no. And I'm sure he's going to get his attorney to say, hey, this guy's hurting my business. No, you don't belong in politics. I'm sorry. In my strong opinion, Mr. Jeris, you don't belong in politics. You are what's wrong with politics, right? And so I'm sorry, Mr. Adeel Mirza, but you hired the wrong guy. You have this sexual assault allegation, which actually there's finding some merit to it, and it's caused him some issues. So, could be true. But again, William Wagstaff would be my choice. Susan Cacace, I don't know much of you, but I do know that you're entrenched in the political corrupt circle. You are close with these individuals. Your dad is the one that's levying these allegations or against William Wagstaff. It's your campaign manager's dad. And from what Anthony DiMaggio says there, he's not a guy that you can trust either. And it's unfortunate. So, folks, that's who you have as your campaign, as your candidates for Westchester County. What's going on with this Republican Party? Can you guys not find anyone? Right? Can the Republican Party is just sold out completely? According to many individuals who are insiders, the Republican Party is controlled by the Democrats. It's controlled by in Yonkers, it's controlled by the Spanos. They basically tell the Republicans what to do. They have done this so that there is no real challenger to any of their candidates. If you ever see a Republican candidate, it's really someone that's just there. It's a fake candidate. They're there just to block anyone else from entering the race. You do have Mike Breen a Republican council member, Anthony Moranti, who has been very vocal very recently against everything that's wrong with Yonkers politics. But Mike Breen, on the other hand, is a Spano loyalist, and so you're not going to get much out of him. I mean, they call him the laziest councilman. And by the way, Breen, that came from, in my opinion, Mike Breen and the Breen family, from members of the Sage family, certain Jordanians. That's who created that meme of you being the. I know you want to blame Ron Mattin, but it wasn't. I believe it was members of the Sage family, in my opinion. I have to start saying that nowadays so I don't get sued. The lieutenant may be farmed, which means mandated to rehab rather than fired. He may also be told to retire under threat of termination. I like him. Hopefully he'll realize that he's stuck around far longer than he should have and just pulled the plug. Well, if he's able to retire, I think that's what he should do. Listen, we all make mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. I'm not gonna, sit here and say that I don't drink. I haven't drank alcohol in a very, very long time. But in my younger days, I would go and I'd have some drinks, and I'd be lying if I say I didn't get behind the wheel, of a car. But so we all make mistakes. Fortunately, it would never. Not that I was ever plastered, but you had a couple of drinks and you drive home. But we all make mistakes, So I don't want to crucify this police officer. What I'm simply saying is that individuals can get away with certain things or doing certain things that you would think they would get fired for, while other individuals are fired for doing the right thing, right? Like Anthony DiMaggio and my wife, who was amazing administrators, and others who have been fired and for retaliatory reasons, like the former Spanish teacher over at Roosevelt, who recently won $25,000 in his lawsuit against the Yonkers Public Schools for his termination. Was it her? Was it him? It was a Spanish teacher. I don't remember if it was a female, male. But this is why we didn't sue, because he got $25,000 and $13,000 of it went to his attorney, and we received, it was over 25, just like over 25, and he got like 12,000 something. Like, it's not worth $12,000. It's not, Although I'm very broke, Zahi, I have $0. I could use the $12,000. Shout out to my mentor who I haven't spoke with in a very long time. And he does watch the podcast. Shout out to you. He taught me a lot, and I have a lot of respect for him. And one of the things he taught me was how to protect your money. Shout out to you, Danny. I appreciate everything you taught me. Anyway, folks, I'm Freddie Vasquez, Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you for watching. And make sure you go out and vote. Make sure you go out and vote. As William Ward likes to remind us all, we are in this situation because many people do not vote. They're still doing that crap. That's right, William. Many people do not vote, and it's important that you vote, right? Especially, Black Americans, Hispanics, but particularly Black Americans who have struggled for that right to vote. You must exercise it. And many of you are being affected with these developments and studios going up as they're pushing you out of your communities there on the Northwest side. And it's important that you hear all the information and do not simply vote for someone based on their color. Do not simply vote on someone based on the fact that you're being told to vote for that person, or they do these great fluff pieces. Get to know who these individuals are. Learn their backgrounds. Learn what they've actually done. We don't care about the food drives. That's great that you do that. We don't care about these feel-good events. What have they done in terms of legislation that has benefited the community and not taken away from the community? And then go and vote. It's very important. And especially in the Westchester County district attorney's race, because some of us may be facing one of these district attorneys, and we want to make sure that they are honest people with integrity. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Have a beautiful rest of the week, folks. Enjoy. Take care. God bless. Church was great today. I needed it. I recommend, if you're not going to church, get some Jesus in your life. Take care, folks. I'm out of here.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.